So let me get into the three areas, and that they are primarily policy itself, in particular some ideas that have come out of the Commission on the Pan-European Commission that I've been privileged to be a member of. One is that it sounds obvious, but it still seems to me so few people truly focus on it, that we need to really, truly embrace a One Health agenda, as is probably the cause of this current pandemic, even though there is much dispute still, that there's no greater, unfortunately, clear symbol of the interconnectivity of our plant life, our animal life, our environment, and the world we live in as humans. And we're not going to be able to deal with these devastating infections that have come along and will come along in the future unless we have a truly One Health approach. The second one, however, is something that is a very major part of the Monti Commission's final recommendations. And we have proposed the idea of the introduction of what we are calling a Global Health and Finance Board under the leadership of the G20 group of nations. And let me give three specific further comments as to why. Without finance being directly in the heart of thinking about health all the time, I think the simple reality is we are not going to be in a position to stop global health threats causing the problems that we are witnessing around the world through this pandemic. And so the whole central purpose is not to replace any of the existing health establishments, particularly the WHO, but actually to enable them to be a lot more effective and a lot quicker. I am very hopeful and have some confidence that this particular proposal is getting a very warm reception from a number of countries. I know for sure that includes the United States, the UK, France, the EU, and the host country of this year's G20, Italy. And so I am hopeful that between now and when they meet at the October G20, this will be the basis for persuading other G20 countries to embrace this idea. I truly believe in order to have a world where we properly deal with the threat of antimicrobial resistance, as well as other truly global, shocking economic and financially consequential infections, this is something that is now we need. And part of and why, and amongst why the AMR challenge is so intellectually fascinating, trying to get the proper attention of all 8 billion of us around the world and our policymakers requires still a more sophisticated public relations or public information campaign. And I can't underestimate, in my view, the importance of that in putting pressure on all our nation's policymakers to do the right thing in order to adopt what I think our review and others have made very clear policies to reduce the inappropriate usage. So we have to combine it with all the other ideas that my review and others have suggested, including a greater use of vaccines. If we can find more effective vaccines, if we can go from this crisis we're in today, where more people have realized vaccines can be useful, to rolling out more effective vaccines, particularly in the use for when it's actually necessary for disease prevention in animals, but also for fighting drug-resistant TB and other obvious challenges, then in itself, it would reduce the need for any antibiotics for illness prevention as we go through time. And so I really hope the momentum from the pandemic in the use of vaccines continues and spills over into so many other areas where it's so urgently needed. I'm shocked about the relative amount of talk compared to actual progress. And for somebody that comes from the world that I've come through, it is quite surprising how people can talk for so long and so frequently with so little actual progress. And it's very frustrating. And I guess part of the issue is because it's about money at the end of the day. And this goes back to why, another reason why I think we need something like a global health and finance board, because we need to have policymakers not just occasionally focused on it when something happens to fall in a minister's in tray, but it needs to be part of their DNA. And as we show with the AMR review, if you put it all together, we had 29 recommendations that we estimated would require $42 billion, which is a lot of money. But if it's going to stop 100 trillion lost, that's a 20,000% return. The time has come for modern finance ministries and the International Monetary Fund to think about finance in a slightly more imaginative way, in which you split government spending in many departments, particularly health, into investment spending from maintenance spending. And this is something that the IMF needs to not only embrace, but probably lead. And so if we had a much more transparent way of dividing spending into investment spending from current spending, I think it would allow a much more rational approach to planning for spending for disease prevention. The first thing that a global health and finance board would have to do would to make sure we've got a proper, connected, focused data institute that's helping and giving support to the likes of the Fleming Fund.
One of the first pillars in the GAP, which was written, as you know, a number of years ago, was to increase the visibility of AMR. Yeah. And for that, we really need to communicate with communities and really get the word out there. I have 3 points to sum up your excellent discussion points. The first off is that we need to embrace a One Health agenda.
Yes.
The second is the Global Health and Finance Board should be commissioned, bringing the global health to the Finance Board, but this needs to be funded properly, and the WHO, FAO, etc. need to be funded properly to do this. The final point is, don't let a crisis go to waste. We need a proper health system globally. We need to make sure that AMR is part of the discussion when we talk about pandemics. As we all call it, the silent pandemic, it needs to be less, it needs to be louder. It needs to have a voice here.